Okay, I think I am actually what I did was, hi everybody, this is Monica again, and I am back. I don't know if anybody can find me, but what I did was I upgraded Restream, right? So Restream is a streaming tool I'm using, and lets you use it for free, but it's not functional at all. So now apparently my chat works. So apparently I'm streaming to LinkedIn and to YouTube, um, and it looks like people can get to me because there's this little symbol that says eyes, and like people who are watching. Oh, look at that. I can see your message. Um, MD Arun. Yeah. Awesome. Oh, and you're on YouTube. Nice to meet you, MD Arun. Is it like Dr. Arun? I'm sorry. If it's Dr. Arun, then I'll say Dr. Arun, but it could be MD, like your name is MD. But anyway, yes, and hello. Welcome. Let's see here. Awesome, awesome. So you're the only one here. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them. Obviously, you asked the first one. Can you see message now? So it's awesome. Oh, it's your front and middle name. Okay, very good. Okay, so but I could call you doctor. I'm sure that's a honorable thing to say that somebody's doctor. But maybe you're a doctor of data science. Do I work with SSIS? No. What is SSIS? Let me see here. You'll have to tell me what SSIS is because. Oh, okay. Well, maybe you're writing it along. I'm sorry. I'm getting this message here that it says that you can't post to some places. Okay, let's see here. Read, reply, close. ETL tools. SSIS is ETL tools. I'm sorry, I haven't done it, but I am really good at ETL. Okay, I love ETL and I'm very good at designing it. So usually what I do is I study the data outside of the tool, or if the tool is a profiler, I study that and I design the ETL before I go into the tool. But so I use ETL tools all the time. I just have never used this one. And welcome. It looks like Aaron is here. Nice to meet you, Aaron. Thanks for the great content. Oh, thank you. First, is data science used in the realm of forestry? And do you know how to structure it? Okay, first of all, I'm just going to be clear. When I use the term data science, what I mean is statistics, informatics, and usually some study design, management. It's a combination of things. So I will tell you from that definition, it is used in forestry. I haven't met anybody in forestry using it, but I do know it's used all the time in mapping. And forestry is all about like where like geography. So I will tell you, if you want, I can guarantee you, even without googling anything, if you want to go into data science and forestry, just jump into geographic stuff, you know. And you ask, do you know how it's structured? I would just say shape land. You're in shape land at like ArcGIS. I'm not good at that stuff, but if you are go into forestry, I would go that direction. um Oh, and then MD Arun says that SSIS is powered by Microsoft. Well, that's probably why I haven't used it because oh, you're a data engineer. Oh, okay. So you're good. See, people say they're data engineers, and the only thing I hear is engineer because I'm not an engineer and I'm really bad at engineering. So I'm like, thank you. You're here. Oh, good. I'm glad that helped, Aaron. Um, yeah, so I'm not an engineer. And so when people have talked to me, they say you're kind of an IS person. I'm like, yeah, I'm an IS person, but I get along really well with engineers because I need them. Engineers know how to fix things. They know how to get in the weeds and fix things. I need you, MD Arun. They know how to do things. Like my favorite boss ever. My favorite boss ever was an electrical engineer, and he taught me so much. But the thing I loved about him is when we started working together, he was a CIO. He said to me, he goes, "What are we doing here?" And I said, "Let me explain epidemiology to you." And I explained it to him in a half hour, and he got it. You cannot do that with a doctor. Doctors don't understand epidemiology in a half hour, but engineers, you can really transfer knowledge back and forth. But but I need them, so because I'm more of like a designer. Like I design front ends. Good luck trying to program a front end, you know. Like it's so funny. I had this intern. Well, actually, she was just my customer, and she came to me and she's like, "Monica, I want to learn how to make dashboards in R." It's like that's front end programming. I can't do it. I said, "I can't teach you. I can teach you how to design a dashboard. I can teach you the whole process. I can teach you how to make something gorgeous and runs nice. Everybody loves it, but I can't program." So she's so smart. She just figured it out. And actually, let me go get the link. I'll get the link. I think I have it here. She's actually made 2. Here's the first one we made. Let me give you the link if they let me use the link here. Okay, here's a dashboard we did together. She did all the programs. She's just so amazing. Okay, so MD Arun has a question. How does a data scientist and data engineer work together in industry? Well, I was kind of giving a hint about that. So imagine I'm working with like a data you've worked with data analysts. Okay. So I do data analysis, right? Oh, why? Because I hate working with data analysts. Because if you're working with a data analyst, you're working with somebody who's answering a research question, like they're analyzing data to answer a research question. When it comes to data science, the way they've been using it with data engineers, you're sort of thinking something else. You're thinking more of an applications thing. So I'll give you an example from something my intern and I did. She scraped a bunch of data from a dashboard we didn't like, and we didn't like the display. And the dashboard was displaying data about hospital infection rates because it's bad if there's hospital infections, right? It's public data. So she scraped it. She didn't like the display. She scraped it. And then I was saying we should be able to use the data to come up with some sort of risk level so we can order these hospitals. So we fit a regression and we did that, but then we weren't done. I mean, right? Like we want to instantiate that. Like we want people to be able to run the regression on the fly or get the score on the fly and be able to choose a hospital on the basis of it. Okay. That's more data science, like that operational stuff. Like the data analyst maybe could fit their regression and then they'll be like, okay, I'm done. And they're like, okay, well, how do we put in the dashboard? How do we make the user interact with it? And so what has happened is like how did I start out? I was a fashion designer. I have a degree in design. Like I know how to design things and make things, right? And I'm just really good with data, so I became a data scientist. But and my intern, I'm talking about. What was she? She's a musician, right? People who are like doctors and engineers, like people you think that would be good data scientists, are often just not that good. I mean, they have to work really hard to be good. It's not natural to move from being in a clinical role to data science, even with the data that you use. It's not n- even really natural to go from engineering to like data science. It's more natural to go from anything that has to do with like design or has to do with like management, because the only thing is that you have to program, and so you have to know how to do that. And like I said, I can't program a front end, but I was good at programming back end. Well, not really programming back ends, but designing back ends and also analyzing data. I'm good at doing that. I can deal with data, just fine. And so that's why I can get around. When did you enter to data science field? Well, what happened was, that's a good question, Arun. What happened was the data science field didn't exist. Okay. What existed was different fields. Like I was in like the late 90s, we had a lot of market research that was based on people going into a phone room with a bunch of phones and then calling people on the phone and doing surveys with them and entering it into a computer or writing it down, and people would enter it and do a data analysis, and that was public opinion research. I was like one of those data collectors. I was really good at it. Then I was a secretary in an epidemiology unit, and I was like, oh, well, this is other data collection. This is where they have like proteinuria and insulin and stuff. And so then I was like, well, this other data collection pays more. and you can be a scientist, instead of like a journalist. I wasn't sure whether I want to be a scientist or a journalist. So I decided to become an epidemiologist. Then I was doing study designs and collecting data, and I was like, well, wait a second here. I don't like statisticians. They aren't doing my data right. So, and then I was like, I don't like anybody. Nobody's collecting my data right. So I just started designing databases. So my first database I designed was in 1998. I used Access, and I was working at a clinic. So I designed this clinical database, and I had to HIPAA-ize it because there was the new privacy law. And so I was doing informatics. I was trained in epidemiology, and I'd done data collection. And then now you know, if you get an MPH, a Master's in Public Health, they'll teach you biostatistics. It's just, if you're interested in epidemiology, usually like, oh my God, I don't like biostatistics. But I actually kind of liked biostatistics. I mean, I didn't really get into the theory a lot, but the application is really cool. Like, I like fitting models. It's so much like fitting an actual model, like if you're a fashion designer. So I just started doing my own biostatistics and doing my own informatics, my own databasing and data collection, and then my own epidemiology. And I was like, they should have a field for this. And then the field data science showed up, and I was like, thank God, there's a field for this, because it was like in the early 2000s. I was like, the way the internet is growing, we're going to have just tons of data, and we're not going to be able to analyze it. We're not going to be able to apply study designs to it. So like if you look at my LinkedIn learning courses, there's a 2-course series in data science, or big data, I can't remember, health design, study design for health data, big data health study design. I can't remember the name. But anyway, it's these 2 study design courses. They're basically taking epidemiologic principles and applying it to existing data, which we were starting to do in 2000s because we always had big data sets in epidemiology. But they were we were starting to be able to do it kind of fast, like, because technology advanced, so it wasn't like you just hit run on SAS and go home and come back the next day. You could do stuff more. So we started having to get more creative and figure out, like, how do you really apply, and a lot of our data are biased now. Just data that show up in like insurance databases and stuff. So it's like, how do you apply study designs to that? So I guess that's when I entered the data science field, is like the early 2000s, but it really didn't exist until about 2012 or 2013. That's the first time I heard the term data science. But all right, well, it looks like there's still only one person here. I wonder if anybody, let's see here. So I've got Arun, you're here from YouTube. Oh, there's 2 people here. I'm wondering if anybody can get here from LinkedIn. Well, maybe next time I'll do a better job of streaming and figuring out who's here. So whoever joined, welcome. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. So I was gonna, oh, look, let's see, you've got a question. And it's my birthday, and you're 23. You're just 23 in 2017, and you signed up for a full stack developer boot camp. Oh, and you didn't like it very much. And then you shifted to data engineer, which you like very much. Okay, well, that's good. So what happens is sometimes networky stuff, people don't like it, and then they like data-y stuff. And some people, like networky people, do not like data stuff. So yeah, see, that's the thing, is a lot of times people don't realize what exactly all is in the computer field. Like engineering stuff. It's so funny because when I was like a kid, so I was in the 80s and early 90s, the idea of data science just wasn't among kids. Like, we would program games a lot, and the way the games were is that wasn't, everything was so simple. There really weren't databases. Like, there was DB2 and stuff. There weren't databasing languages. And it really wasn't until SQL was invented and technology advanced in the early 2000s that people started thinking about data and programming with data. So when I grew up, all you basically had were, you could program games, you could make images and stuff, and I was terrible at that. So I was like, oh, I'm a terrible programmer. And so my friends from when I was growing up, they're like, it's so funny that, I'm known as among us, I'm a terrible programmer, but I'm the one who's writing books about programming and teaching programming because I'm good at programming data, so I'm probably like but like something like full stack developer, I you know, they the the software language that displays like Microsoft, when you run Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel and it looks like there's a piece of paper on the piece, on the desk. That's called Visual Basic for applications. And in the early 2000s, like people did a lot with programming Excel like dashboards. I wouldn't do it today. They're buggy and there's everything wrong with them. Just do things online. But like people were really into that and using macros and stuff. I can't tell you how many courses I took and how to do that. I never could figure it out. See, so Arun says, I asked full stack developer about data engineering job roles, and they were like, it's not a good job. Just go for full stack developer. That's where I learned my lesson, not ask for the software. Yes. I know, it's so funny. It's like, well, so going back, you're so right. Arun. Now going back to something I just said, right? Remember how I said there weren't really data people before 2000? When SQL was invented, and I was just seen as a bad programmer until we had data languages. Well, the other thing that happened was when we started having data languages, everybody wanted a database. Like when they invented Microsoft Access and somebody like me could just make a little database and have it. All of the people at a workplace would say, "We want a database. We want a database." And they would go to like the IT department, the IT department that's doing things like throwing cable through the ceiling and putting cat fives in the walls, whatever. They go to them and say, "Make us a database," and they would just like they would have like a heart attack. And I always laugh. I'd be like, "Why are they having a heart? Just pull up an Excel file and put some data in and tell them it's a database," But then it was later in life when I realized, oh yeah, that's like them coming to me and saying, "Program a front end." I'd have a heart attack, you know. Yeah. So what happened is it was sometime in the 90s. I remember meeting this guy. Yeah, like a SQL DBA. Yeah, yeah. See, DBAs, this is so funny. I deal with databases. I design them, I work with them. But DBAs don't really do databases. They just make them run. So they're like interesting engineers. They don't really care what's in the data. They just know how to make it run. They're kind of like engine people. They just make engines run. And so if you have a SQL database and you have a SQL DBA, like you want a SQL DBA because I'm more of a designer. Like I'll design the database. I'll design, the reports. I'll design like if there's a data problem, I'll design a flow or things. But oh, Abdul Rahim Uthman, your comment didn't show. I'm sorry. So did your comment come in from I'm sorry, this is the first stream I've ever done, and so I'm kind of like troubleshooting. Did it come in from LinkedIn? Because it looks like this comment came in from YouTube. Because now your comment is showing. If you want to repeat the comment that didn't show, I'll see what I can do. Oh, and I know, I just keep rereading the comments. I know I can. Okay, so you're from YouTube. I don't know why it didn't show. Well, I'm not showing the comments on the screen, but I can. Like here I'll let's see here. Yeah, see I'm practicing here. So I showed your comment. Oh, let's see here. My comment. Yeah, I was just practicing showing comment, but I didn't show any comments until now cuz you just basically I just learned how to do that because you made a comment. But if you want to so your comment you made a comment from YouTube and I didn't see it. Yeah, I'm going back here. Uh yeah, I'm so sorry, Abdul Rahim. But if you want to make the comment again, maybe I'll see it again. So Arun, yes, I've seen some people who are working with the SQL DBA and SQL Developer, Dashboard, ETLs. They are upgrading themselves. Yeah, now kind of what? Oh, hello, it's Karnak Sorov. I saw your comment today. Oh, I'm glad you're glad to see me live. Here, I'll show your comment because it's such a nice comment. That's a nice comment. I'm getting the hang of this. Thank you. Um, all right, so let's see here, and then I can hide it again. Um, so what happened to me, as you can probably tell by my little story, that first I want to do public opinion polling, then I want to be I want to do epidemiology, and then I can't stand how the statistician's handling my data, so I want to do that, and then I build the database, whatever. That I started just like kind of doing everything. Well, when you start doing everything, you turn into kind of like a producer. So if any of you are musicians, like professional musicians, let's say you go in to record with your band, sometimes you need some extra drums, you just need some more something in there, and they'll at at the place that's recording, they have people who play music that they'll just produce it, like they'll just go in there and shake some maracas or something, right? And so I became kind of like a research producer or a database producer or whatever. I go onto the team, and whenever we hit something that nobody knew how to do, I would solve it. It's not like I knew how to program, but I would design a solution for it. Like I'd be able to figure out, does a SQL developer do it, or do we do some dashboard thing, or or do we just ask people to change the business rules, or set a new policy? What do we do? So now I'm like a boss, basically. And when you're a boss, your goal is always to never program, but then I'm always programming. I'm always also reading other people's code. So like my intern wanted to learn Python. I say, I don't know Python. I know R. And then she went and learned Python on her own. And she learned R first, and then she learned Python. So I probably should learn Python, but I'll bet you anything, if you showed me some Python, I'd be able to read it and be able to figure out what was wrong with it. Because once you've done it like so many times, you get kind of good at, like, I'm not a good programmer. Like if you want to build a SQL backend, it will actually build it. I'll design it. I'll design a beautiful one. But you want people who are programming every day to build you things. Okay, so Abdul Rahim, we've got your question now. I'm a beginner in data science. I'm following a roadmap. I started with Python by watching a 4-hour video on Free Code Camp and another video, but I feel like I'm not getting it. Please advise. Okay, so here's what the problem is. And actually, you asked, I have an answer to your question, and I'm going to go to my blog and link you to this. Whoops, got this. I'm going to look up, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of looking away from the screen, but I'm going to look up this blog post to give you because it explains what I'm going to summarize really quickly here. And I made the blog post because I was getting a lot of comments, just people writing to me, like saying what you're saying, Abdul Rahim. So I'm going to post this in the chat here. This is a blog post. So people were saying to me, Monica, I'm taking these courses, they're not sinking in, or uh, sometimes, like, you just went through a 4-hour video and you're like, okay, am I really getting anywhere? Sometimes people do more than that. Like they'll take Python, they'll learn like every programming language, like SAS, R, everything. And then they'll say this to me. And what I realized is the reason why I was able to pick up anything about data was because I was a secretary. I was just somebody who was doing data entry. I was somebody who was dealing with the business. So the first thing you should do is pick a topic. And you'll see that when you go to that blog post, I'll say pick a topic first. Now, and you'll see that I say, well, if you're old like me, it's easy to pick a topic because you've already had, maybe you were a nurse already, so you pick nursing or something. um when you're younger, it's harder to pick a topic because you're like, seriously, I'm going to pick a topic now when I don't know about anything, and then I'm going to get a data science job in it in a year or something. Well, it's not really that. It's actually simpler than that. Like when you think about it, there's stuff you already kind of know about, you know. It's just that, do you like it or not, right? Like, do you like finance? What do you know about finance? Do you like it? And so usually what I do is I tell people, pick a topic that you think you like, and then take just classes in that topic. So um people will, like, for example, a lot of people want to do like marketing, like online social media marketing. I'm like, I seriously recommend you take, like, and I've taken an online marketing course on LinkedIn Learning, because I just wanted to understand marketing better. And they teach you all this terminology and all these concepts in that field. So you kind of have to pick a topic. Then when you go and you do so, let's say that you had picked healthcare, um, Abdul Rahim. Like, let's just pretend that was the topic you picked. Then starting with Python's not a good idea because people in healthcare don't really start with Python. My intern ended up at Python after she learned like SAS and R. Like, she's learning SAS now because in healthcare you have to learn SAS. All their stuff is in SAS. So it's kind of like once you pick the topic and you kind of know something about the data in there, it sort of leads to data sets that are in a certain format and leads to certain kinds of data analysis they always do. And then when you take a 4-hour course, maybe you can take one that's in that topic where they're doing fraud detection or whatever you're trying to do, and it will sink in. So that's how you get it to sink in. Okay. And then I see Arun says here, sometimes people learn web development, Python, and they just confuse themselves. Exactly, because like, what are you trying to do? So one of the things that I linked, those of you who've been on for a while, I linked you to a dashboard my intern made, right? Why was she able to make that dashboard? Well, I'll give you the backstory. She came to me, she wanted to learn how to design a dashboard. Well, I had just written a report for a healthcare system where they were having some trouble with their visualizing their healthcare infections just for a report. And I said, I have the perfect thing for your dashboard. Like, we'll make some fake data and you can put it in there and do it. What unfortunately she didn't learn then is that it's actually really hard to come up with a use case for dashboards. It's like all that development had happened already. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, if she had just been devoid of the topic that I'd already cooked up for her, she would have never really, like, because I saw her, she was making dashboards, but like, for instance, she made an agricultural dashboard. And I said, well, I want to look at the Midwest because I'm from Minnesota. And she didn't really have a map for it. So I was like, okay, you need to have a use case or you don't really know what you're designing. Oh, and I will say hello, Reginald Peaks. Peaks the second. I shouldn't be just trying to pronounce everybody. Reginald, nice to meet you. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. This is welcome to my first live stream, but it's now definitely going to happen again because I got frustrated and I bought the upgrade to the software. So, I got to get my money's worth. And so I'm going to just live stream constantly now. All right. Well, I'm so glad you guys all showed up. Like, the 5 people showed up to my first live stream. I'm so happy. Unfortunately, like, I was trying to do this on LinkedIn, because if you're on LinkedIn and you followed, what one place I'd recommend to follow, not that everything they do is good, but they do a lot of live streams and they're really interesting. Not all of them, but some of them are really interesting. It's kind of catch or catch can. I'm gonna find it on here. They're called Product School. Let's see here. Product School. Yeah, if you follow them, excuse me. Here they are. I'm gonna put a link to them in the chat. Uh, Pegues, pronounced Pegues, Reginald Pegues the second. Thank you. All right, welcome. So this is a link here to Project School, and if you follow them, they're on LinkedIn. You'll get a notification every time they go live, and they usually have like data scientists who actually worked at a place like Uber or something, talking. Not always data scientists, sometimes project managers and stuff. And like I said, people are all different. So some of them aren't that interesting, but some of them are. So and I know a lot of people who are early on just want to hear a whole lot of different people talk about different things. That's what that is good for. Okay, so going back to Arun, he says, say how to start a data science field like a roadmap. Well, actually, that's the blog post I linked you to earlier. It's and here, actually, there's even a little video here. um I really talk a lot about learning about your data first in your field. So let me give you an imaginary situation. Okay, imagine you're like just starting college and you want to be a data scientist and you want to get hired. You want to work on a data science team when you're done with college. Like, you want to apply and just get a job. Okay, now let's say that you don't really have a field you really want to work in. Let's say that your like mom is a school teacher of like high school biology and your dad is like an endocrinologist. Okay. Well, one thing, maybe you'd be interested in biology. Maybe you're interested in molecular things, because your mom teaches biology and your dad's an endocrinologist. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you hate all that. What did you do in your childhood? Did you spend a lot of time, like I had an uncle who told me that he was just failing out of high school, and then all of a sudden he fell in love with cars and he had to learn about cars. And I remember my brother got really into the Super Bowl. He memorized all the Super Bowl statistics. That's from American football. And so it's like you want to find something where you already know the business rules. So what are business rules? Business rules are how that field works. So I don't ask me about American football, right? I don't know how American football works. I don't know how they trade. I don't know any of that. But my brother does. Okay. So if my brother had been 18 and wanted to be a data scientist, I would have been like, go do that. Go do sports prediction because you've memorized all of that. Now, my brother is not good at math. He's not really into numbers. He's not really into science. But with his knowledge, he could immediately pick up like the data science tools to apply it to American football because he was like so obsessed with it. You know what I mean? And so that's what the issue is applying your data science knowledge and techniques to something that you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? Um so let's see. Yeah, so Arun points out that there's a video on my channel of how to start a data science that I uploaded 8 days ago. Yeah, so what happened was I made this blog post, but then I was watching YouTube and I realized, I don't read blogs. I watch videos. I thought, well, maybe I should maybe put this in a video. And then when I put it in the video, I realized, well, the blog post is really focused on just health, because I'm an epidemiologist, right? But if you go on like LinkedIn Learning, you'll know I have an experimental design course, which is not healthcare. It's like how you do an A/B testing online, right? And so I was like, I think I need to tell everybody the generic idea that the software is sort of the last thing you do. The software and the statistics is sort of the last thing you do because if you can kind of imagine my brother again, he knows everything about American football. He just doesn't know Python. He doesn't know statistics. He doesn't know SAS. He doesn't know um, how to write. He doesn't know the scientific method. He doesn't know how to design a study, whatever. But he knows what's important in football and what's not. He knows what to expect. He knows what all the terminology means. He knows what when the seasons are. He just knows all the business rules. So one of the things that had happened to me was just by happenstance. I was going to school, getting my undergraduate at the University of Minnesota, and I was studying fashion design, but I was also interested in journalism. So I took some courses in journalism, and at the same time I was doing this job on the phone doing data collection. Getting paid nothing, right? But it made me interested, so I took some courses in public opinion polling. And that's what I'm kind of trying to get everybody to do who's at the beginning of their data science journey is to say, oh, that's interesting. Let me just take courses in that topic, right? I could have just gone and done a whole career in public opinion polling, but I think why I ended up in epidemiology is I really wanted something that was just clearly like humanitarian. And also, I was sort of intrigued by the idea that someday there'd be a worldwide pandemic. So here we are. I guess it's a little anticlimactic now that we're here. But anyway, so yeah, so that's why I made the blog post. So what I've been doing is kind of like a lot of people contact me on LinkedIn and they ask me questions because what I started to find out is this is always funny. I started to find out that I'm actually kind of a good teacher, right? Because what happens is a lot of people can make a lot of money on teaching data science. But and I'm not saying they're bad. Like they're often people who have done it and so they know it. The problem is teaching computer stuff is not like teaching normal stuff. It is hard to take skills, computer skills, and transfer them to somebody, especially if you're like doing it for do-it-yourself learners, like people who like Free Code Camp or LinkedIn Learning. Like you, what happened to me was I was an epidemiologist, and I mean, I was a secretary in an epidemiology unit, and we were studying cardiovascular disease. I cannot tell you how awesome cardiovascular disease is. Like, your heart is amazing, and your vascular system's amazing, and all the diseases you can get are just like amazing. Okay, but the problem is I went to work at an Alzheimer's institute where we were studying the brain, and I hate studying the brain. Okay, why? People are like, oh, the brain. I'm like, well, first of all, everybody's heart is kind of the same, but everybody's brain is totally different, right? And your brain models the whole time. I was at an Alzheimer's institute. People getting Alzheimer's, their brain has been modeling their whole lives, right? Like, it's just hopeless, right? Like, I was just like, I don't want to study the brain. But if you're an epidemiologist and you go work at an Alzheimer's institute, you kind of have to take courses in the brain. So I took these courses and accidentally learned about how people do memory, because that's Alzheimer's, is they lose their memory. Well, how people do memory is like learning in memory. You can't learn without memory. So it's learning is all about finding a way. Like, if I'm teaching you something and I want you to learn it, I've got to find a way to take what I'm my idea and make it be memorized by you. So I have to find a way to make that message like taken up by your sensory system in such a way that it lays down into episodic or permanent memory, like these different memories, right? So I started just like going, oh, well, if you teach online, like a college course, and you don't want to have to deal with your class a lot, you just make really good, like really good learning materials that like communicate perfectly into their brains what you're trying to teach them, and then you'll never get any questions. It's like this total hack, right? And if you want to see how I did it, you can go on my YouTube. I have a playlist of, actually, let me just link you to it, because a lot of people who are saying, Monica, where do I start uh in data science? And they want to start with statistics. I say, well, a lot of people have just liked my basic statistics lectures in which I used to teach to my undergraduate class, which are not, you don't, you can just, they're just free code camp kind of stuff. Free code camp actually posted them. I'm just giving you the, um, I'm just giving you my playlist, but Free Code Camp contacted me and asked if they could put it together into 8 hours. And you can find that version too. Either one is fine. It's nice when people come to um, my channel. But that's very basic statistics. And what I find is funny is those were posted because I was teaching a class, right? And my class went well. Like, I worked at this college. I taught this online class in undergraduate nursing, in statistics to undergraduate nurses, and it went well because I used my knowledge from the Alzheimer's Institute to design this perfect curriculum that totally communicated to these people, so they never asked me any questions. So what ended up happening is I don't work there anymore, but people were contacting me and saying, "Can I use them?" I'm like, "Yeah, go ahead." And also, what I started noticing was people were commenting on the free code camp one and also on the ones on my channel that they themselves were data scientists, that I mean, they already knew how to do regression. Like, they already knew like logistic regression and stuff, but they were watching these basic um videos and they were just loving it. And what I realized is, back when I was hired to teach that class, I remember opening the book and saying, "Oh crap, I don't remember any of this." And I remember just saying, "Z-score? What was that?" I remember we learned that like in 100 years ago. So I had to actually totally relearn it. And I guess it shows. Like, I was like, "Okay, this is how you read a tea table," because I totally didn't remember learning it the first time. And so it was a good, that's something that is a good strategy, that if you don't know something very well, you want to teach it. But I warn you, you don't want to teach it if you don't understand it enough, because people would ask me to teach algebra, forget it. Like, I've got a connection, Joseph Shantony. I don't know if he's on right now. He's an engineer, and we were just talking on LinkedIn about how he can just do calculus. Like, he's like my dad. He can do calculus in his head. I can't do that stuff, but but I can design you a gorgeous data warehouse if you want one. So I see we have 4 people here on this, and so if anybody has any questions about anything like learning materials that you think, although I'm always looking for different ones. I don't usually have time to try a lot of them because I'm kind of busy, but and some of them are kind of long. But I do look at things. I often there's just so much out there that where the person doesn't even design the curricula. Like remember watching this video. It was like I got this email. And it was like, oh, we have this new data science course, and I was like, all right, let me go look at it. And it was like suddenly you're into Python and she's clicking around, and I was like, I was like, what is going on? And so I was like, I you don't just go into my videos and we're just suddenly here and we don't know what's going on. And that's a problem. Like when it comes, like I remember when I was working at that Alzheimer's Institute, with that great boss, he said you can have any training you want. But the problem was we would have to go to training at this one place and I would just fall asleep. I cannot learn like in a class, like about Excel. I have to do a project. And so that's why you'll see that I'm always trying to get people to do projects to practice what they learn, or at least do little challenges. Like I don't those of you, if anybody's listening to me and you want to go into healthcare analytics, you're going to have to learn SAS. Okay, so just face it. So I'm going to give you a link to um a course. Let's see here. A free course I made in how to use SAS online because okay, so before anybody complains, I'll just tell you SAS is hard to use, okay? It's uh but you have to. It's like vegetables, you have to eat them, if you're in uh if you're in epidemiology or biostatistics or public health, you're going to have to use SAS. Let me see. I'm looking for my here it is. So this is a link to a free course I made in how to get started with SAS. Um, but it's not any good unless you're sort of learning SAS. So you're going to want to you know, practice with some white papers. Oh, and Reginald says, I have posted stuff, but I don't know if you see it. Oh, Reginald, did you post it in LinkedIn or did you post it in YouTube? Let's see here. Because I think there's something wrong with LinkedIn and I can't see the stuff from LinkedIn. Like I should be able to. Um I'm sorry, Reginald, if you've posted something. Oh, so it looks like this restream is missing some things because I think someone else said that. Abdul Rahim, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's wrong. It could be because I just paid for this today and it's still not kind of working right. Um, so Reginald, is there a way you can copy and paste what you post and we'll see if it shows up again? And I'm gonna have to get better at this live streaming. And one of the things I'm gonna have to figure out how to share my screen or show things. Maybe you can't. I don't know. Let's see here. And then let me think. What else I could tell you. If you're starting out like I've been sort of helping people who are starting out at the beginning. It's really overwhelming now. Like there's so much stuff. Um, One thing to think about is that what teach are data programming languages that are pretty basic, like R and SAS, and even SQL is pretty basic. But there's all these tools. Like I don't know if anybody's ever used Cognos. Cognos is by IBM, and it's a tool. It's like an interface you can put onto a data warehouse to do queries on it. So it's like in my mind, I draw a division between things like Cognos, or like Tableau. Tableau is a visualization program, but it's not really a data analysis program the way R is, even though R can do visualization. So I sort of draw this line between these sort of raw programs and ones that are more higher generation, like Cognos. And I think that SSIS you had mentioned earlier, Arun, might fall in that category. And those are the ones that those higher generation ones, those are the ones that, you know, like actually, I have a colleague. She's so sweet. She contacted me. She and a group, a team contacted me and they said, Monica, we have to use this graphic database. And I was like, okay, but for what? Like what is a graphic database? And then I started realizing what a graphic database is, because I had a student who was an interior designer to take an interior design class, and we had to use the software. It was super cool, where what she was doing is designing for homework. She was designing this room in an apartment in New York. She was given the coordinates, and they were saying, okay, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what is the sun like? And you have to choose a window and it has to refract it, whatever. Well, what this program had was all that data. It had all that geographic data. We were able to say how much sun would be on that apartment in New York on that day. It also had loaded all the specs for the windows. So we could choose different windows and see what the light was like, what the heat was like inside. So that's like an example of a graphing database, because all that data was in there. And then you could use these tools. I mean, that thing, like every time you clicked on it, you could hear those little rats running around inside it. So when my friend contacted me, she's like, "Wow, let's use." I'm like, "Yeah, but we need like a use case, like, like, you know what I mean? Like, if my student hadn't come to me and said, I'm trying to design this apartment in New York and 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, I wouldn't have known what to do with that software with all the windows and the weather in it. You know what I mean? And the temperature and stuff. And so it's kind of like I always am like, like students or learners will come to me and say, Monica, do you know this, Power BI or something like that? And I'll be like, well, no, but I could probably figure it out if you've got an assignment in it, because then I've got a use case. And so that's always the use case, just kind of hits, like gives hints as to how to use the software, you know. Um Something that I sort of figured out like kind of late in the game is what you end up doing a lot in data science is forensics. You're basically doing forensics. You're basically taking data and trying to figure out what happened. um you're taking structures of databases, you're taking um analytics, you're taking code, and you're trying to figure out what happened. Arun says SSIS, Informatica, Talent have same features, powered by different companies, but they support their own products. Rather than products like Microsoft SQL Server works good with SSIS, and it works good with Power BI too. So this is a very important point that Arun makes, is that these um, these applications are friendlier to certain things than others. So I'll just even extend that a little bit. SaaS is like big data, right? So where are we going to put that in the SaaS server? But SaaS server, like, hello, it's 2022 now. Um, SaaS has teamed up with Snowflake DB. So Snowflake DB is just agnostic. It's a cloud storage thing. But because SaaS has become friendly with it, it's easier. Like if you want cloud storage and you got SaaS and you want to use SaaS Via, which is the online analytics package now. So if you already have a SaaS shop, sorry, it's kind of like having a an iron lung, like it's a very old thing and it's going to be hard to upgrade, but if you're doing something new in SaaS, like starting a new thing, you want to get SaaS Via and you want to get Snowflake DB. So Arun brings up this really good point that you might have programs that do the same thing, but if they're working with a certain data program, you want to get that one, right? And then Reginald says, I'm using a phone. It won't copy the questions. So quickly, I taught math. Reginald says, in fact, let me put it up here. Let me see if I can. Oh, there it is. I taught math with an MBA because of 500 math as an undergrad at Auburn U. I'm an MS and I want to converse through email. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, let's converse here. I'll put my email in the chat. It's a pretty open email. So feel free to talk to me. Yeah, I'd love to talk to you. Auburn, let's see here. Yeah, you're really smart. Reginald is very smart. Let's see here. Uh so you know math really well. I don't, so maybe you'll have to teach it to me. Oh, and Arun says you work with snowflakes. You say you work with snowflake. You mean snowflake DB, or do you mean like you make you're like me when I was in Minnesota and you make like snow women and snowmen? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, like I actually last thing I did before the pandemic shut everything down was I went to a Snowflake data breakfast. And oh, okay, so you are using Snowflake DB. I went to a Snowflake data breakfast, and actually I'd gone, it was the second time I went. The first time I went, they had technical difficulties, so I couldn't use it. I mean, they could be forgiven because this was, think about it, they had just invented Snowflake, I think. And then a second time I went, I it's a good breakfast. But they didn't have good use cases. That's my thing. You'll learn that if I don't get a good use case, or I'm not clear on the use case, I can't help. Like I have a friend, Quentin. I wonder if he's on here. Quentin will always come to me for advice. And then I'll be like, what's going on? What's going on? You have to give me all the backstory. And he never gives me the backstory. And I'm like, ugh. And then finally he gives you the backstory. So he's like, I'm learning how to give you the backstory, right? Because I always need the backstory before I can really figure it out. So like I was saying earlier, I end up doing a lot of forensics. You know, it's not unusual for me to talk to somebody who's having a data problem, whether they're trying to analyze something or they're building a database, it's just something wrong. It's not usual for me to talk to them, make a million diagrams, ask them a million questions, and then come up with like literally the simplest solution ever. Okay. Why does that happen? Because if you study design, like the history of design, there's a part where there's a certain design how approach called Bauhaus, and after that, that sort of influenced an approach called the style, and those are the design approaches I try to use, and it's the same design philosophy that IKEA uses. So you'll see IKEA stuff is very simple, very well built, well designed, and designed with a lot of things in mind, like the environment and storage and things like that. And so that's why, like, everything that IKEA designs and makes probably has a million documents and files behind it, because nothing is harder than making something simple. And that is really true in data warehousing and in data. Um, those of you like, well, everybody's into Python now. Hopefully, all of you have heard this poem, "The Zen of Python," which maybe I should close the live stream with it here. I'll link you to it. Yeah, let's read the Zen of Python. Okay, so I'll read you this poem here. I didn't write it. It's somebody else wrote it. Who wrote it? What's his face? Tim Peters wrote it. Okay. Beautiful is better than ugly. Explicit is better than implicit. Simple is better than complex. Complex is better than complicated. Flat is better than nested. Sparse is better than dense. Readability counts. Special cases aren't special enough to break the rules, although practicality beats purity. Errors should never pass silently, unless explicitly silenced. In the face of ambiguity, refuse the temptation to guess. There should be one, and preferably only one, obvious way to do it, although that way may not be obvious at first unless you're Dutch. Now is better than never, although never is often better than right now. If the implementation is hard to explain, it's a bad idea. If the implementation is easy to explain, it may be a good idea. Namespaces are one honking great idea. Let's do more of those. Okay, so that was my oh, and then somebody's texting me here. So well, so that's my passionate reading of the Zen of Python, but hopefully you got my point, which is that less is more. Because, you're doing data science. So Tim Peters was right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me on my first data science chat. I enjoyed chatting with you guys. I'm so sorry that everything's not working. I appreciate you coming. Um, oh, you use my videos, Reginald. Oh, you're writing a book that will use mnemonics to teach basic stats. Well, okay, everybody has to stay tuned because I've been working with a musician and we've been trying to make some data science rock videos so you can help memorize things. So that's great, Reginald. I love it. I love it. Oh, and happy new year. Yeah, happy new year to everybody. And thank you so much for joining. And I'm going to try and work on those technical issues and we'll just see where that goes. All right. So happy new year, everybody. Bye-bye.